You buy potatoes every single week. Maybe a 5-pound bag, maybe 10. Here's what you're actually spending. The average household eats 120 pounds of potatoes per year. At $2.50 a pound, that's $300 every year. For a root vegetable that grows itself underground with almost zero effort from you. Now here's what gets me. You have a backyard, or a patio, or a balcony with decent sun, and you're still buying potatoes. I did the same thing for 3 years. Planted rows. Got maybe 20 pounds from 30 feet of garden bed. Did the math one evening and realized I was actually losing money. Then I stopped planting rows, stopped following what everyone told me, started paying attention to geometry. 4 square feet, 1 wire tower that costs $10, 90 days, 80 pounds of food. Let me show you exactly how this works. First, you need to understand why your potato rows aren't working. And I don't mean failing, I mean underperforming. You're getting results. Just not the results you could be getting. Here's what happens when you plant a potato in a row. You dig a trench. You drop in your seed potato, maybe 6 inches deep. It sprouts, sends up a shoot, and becomes a plant. Underground, that plant sends out horizontal stems called stolons. At the end of each stolon, a new potato forms. That's how potatoes reproduce. But here's the limitation you're dealing with. Those potatoes only form in darkness, in loose soil, and within about 6 inches of the main stem. Your traditional row gives the plant exactly 1 layer to work with, 1 chance to produce. The stolons grow outward, hit the hard-packed soil at the edge of your row, and stop. You get 8 potatoes, maybe 12 if your soil is perfect, maybe 15 on a good year. Now think about what happens when you grow vertically. You plant the same seed potato. It sends up the same shoot. But instead of leaving it alone, you bury that shoot with more soil as it grows. The buried stem produces new stolons. Those stolons produce new potatoes. Then you bury it again. More stolons, more potatoes. You're not changing the plant's genetics. You're not adding special fertilizers. You're just giving the plant more vertical real estate to work with. The same seed potato that gave you 12 potatoes in your row can give you 40 in a tower, 50 in a really good season. Same genetics. Same water, same sunlight, different geometry. That's it. That's the entire concept. Everything else is just execution. Let me explain what's happening underground, because this is going to change how you approach everything about this method. You need to understand the biology here. Not the complicated botanical details, just the practical mechanics. A potato plant operates in 2 modes at the same time. Above ground, you've got photosynthesis, standard plant behavior. Leaves absorb sunlight, produce sugar, send energy down to the roots. Nothing unusual there. But underground, you've got a completely different system running. The stolons. These are horizontal stems that grow outward from the main buried stem of your plant. They're not roots. This is important. Your roots absorb water and nutrients. Your stolons don't do that at all. Their only job, their entire existence, is to create potatoes at their tips. Here's the key insight that changes everything for you. Stolons only form on stem tissue that's buried in darkness. If you bury more stem, you get more stolons. More stolons means more potatoes. You can literally multiply your harvest by burying more of the plant. But there's a limit. There's always a limit. Your plant can only support so many potatoes with the energy it produces above ground. Push too hard, and you end up with dozens of small potatoes instead of a reasonable number of large ones. You'll have more total potatoes, but less usable food. The sweet spot, based on 3 years of testing in my own garden, is 3 to 4 hilling cycles over the growing season. That gives you multiple layers of stolons without exhausting the plant. You get both quantity and size. This is why your choice of variety matters more than almost anything else you'll do. Potato varieties fall into two categories that completely determine whether this method will work for you. If you get this wrong, nothing else matters. You'll do all the work and wonder why your tower didn't produce. Determinate varieties set all their potatoes in one layer early in the season. They produce a fixed number of stolons and then they're done. After about 6 weeks, those stems stop producing new growth points. They mature. They harden. Hilling them repeatedly doesn't help because the buried stems don't produce new stolons anymore. You're just burying dead tissue, wasting soil, wasting time. Determinate potatoes are designed for row planting. They work great in rows. Leave them there. Indeterminate varieties are what you want for towers. These keep producing new stolons throughout the entire season as long as you keep burying fresh, actively growing stem. They respond to hilling. They reward vertical growing. They're the varieties that will actually multiply your yield. Here's your problem, though. Most seed catalogs and garden centers don't tell you which type you're buying. They list early season, mid-season, and late season, which refers to days until harvest, not growth habit. A late-season potato could be determinate. An early-season potato could be indeterminate. The label won't tell you. You need the actual variety name. Then you need to look it up yourself. Let me save you the research. Determinate varieties you should not use in towers: Yukon Gold, Red Norland, Chieftain, Superior, Carib, Red Pontiac. These are excellent potatoes for row planting. Don't waste them in towers. Indeterminate varieties you should use in towers: Russet Burbank, Kennebec, German Butterball, Elba, Canela Russet, Green Mountain, Bincha, Nicola. These will keep producing as long as you keep hilling. They're your tower varieties. I use Kennebec for most of my towers. It's reliable. It stores well, lasting 5 to 6 months in a cool basement. Good flavor for baking, mashing, and frying. And it responds beautifully to vertical growing. If you can only find one indeterminate variety at your local garden center, get it. The specific variety matters less than getting the growth habit right. Indeterminate equals tower. Determinate equals row. Memorize that, and you'll avoid the biggest mistake most people make. Preparing your seed potatoes takes about 48 hours and costs you nothing extra. This is where people overcomplicate things. You don't need to buy pre-cut certified seed from a specialty catalog. You don't need to treat your cuts with fungicide powder. You don't need sulfur dust or rooting hormone. You need a sharp knife, some newspaper, and 2 days of patience. Start with potatoes that have visible eyes, those small dimples or bumps where sprouts will emerge. Each piece you plant needs at least 2 eyes. More is fine, but 2 is the minimum. Cut larger potatoes into chunks about the size of a medium egg, around 2 ounces each. Smaller pieces don't have enough stored energy to produce vigorous plants. Larger pieces work, but you're wasting potato that could be another plant. Now, here's the step that most guides mention but don't explain, and it's the step that prevents about 70% of early failures. Fresh-cut potato surfaces are wet. They're exposed. They're basically an open invitation for every soil bacterium and fungus in your garden to move in and start rotting. If you plant fresh cuts into cool, damp spring soil, you're going to lose plants, maybe a third of them, maybe half. I've done it. I've been impatient. I've thought, it's fine, they'll be fine. They weren't fine. The fix is simple. You let your cut pieces dry out before planting. Spread them in a single layer on newspaper or cardboard. Room temperature, not in the refrigerator. Somewhere with decent air circulation. Let them sit for 48 hours. What happens is the cut surfaces form a dry protective layer, basically a scab. This calloused surface stops bacteria from getting in. It makes your seed pieces dramatically more resistant to rot. 2 days of waiting saves weeks of disappointment. Building your tower costs between $8 and $15, depending on what you have available. I've tested multiple approaches over the years. Wood frames, stacked tires, plastic trash cans with holes drilled in the sides, fabric grow bags, stacked tomato cages. Wire mesh beats all of them. It's cheap, it's breathable, which prevents waterlogging. It's reusable for years. And you can actually see what's happening inside your tower throughout the season. Here's your shopping list. A 4-foot length of welded wire fencing with 2x4-inch rectangular openings. You can find this at any hardware store, usually sold by the foot off a big roll. Cost per tower, about $6 to $8. If they don't sell it by the foot, buy a 25-foot roll for $30 and make 4 towers. Get 36-inch height if possible, 48-inch if that's what they have. Roll your wire into a cylinder roughly 18 inches in diameter. Overlap the edges by about 4 inches. Secure the overlap with zip ties, wire twists, or just bend the wire ends around each other. You want it stable, but not permanent. You'll be taking this apart at harvest. Total construction time, about 10 minutes once you have your materials. That's your tower. Put it somewhere with at least 6 hours of direct sunlight. 8 hours is better. Potatoes tolerate partial shade, but they produce fewer and smaller tubers. If you're on grass, that's fine. Your first layer will smother the grass underneath. If you're on concrete or a patio, set your tower in a plastic tray or a shallow storage container with drainage holes. Potatoes can't sit in standing water. Now we fill the tower. And this is where I break from what most potato tower guides tell you. They all say straw. Buy straw bales, layer straw between your soil layers, use straw for hilling. I used to follow that advice. I stopped 3 years ago, and my results got better. Here's why straw is a problem. First, it costs money. $15 to $20 per bale in my area. That eats into your savings before you've even planted. Second, straw often contains weed seeds, or worse, herbicide residue from the wheat field it came from. Those herbicides can persist through the composting process and damage your potato plants. Third, straw doesn't add any fertility. It's carbon with almost no nitrogen. It just takes up space. You know what's better than straw? Leaves. Free leaves. Every fall, your neighbors bag up their leaves and set them on the curb for trash pickup. They're literally throwing away the best potato-growing material available. Ask them if you can take the bags. Most people are thrilled to have fewer trips to the dump. I collect about 10 large bags of leaves every October. Maple, oak, whatever's falling. I store them in a dry corner of my garage through the winter. By spring, they've partially decomposed and they're ready to use. Leaves break down into actual nutrition. They add organic matter to your soil. They improve drainage while retaining moisture, and they cost you nothing except the time to collect them. $0 versus $20. Same result. Better result, actually, because leaves feed the soil while straw just sits there. Your first layer goes in the bottom of the tower. About 6 inches of mixed leaves and compost. No soil yet. This is your drainage layer and your initial root zone. On top of that, add 4 inches of planting mix. I use roughly 50% garden soil and 50% shredded leaves mixed together. Not layered, mixed. This creates a loose growing medium with good drainage and moderate fertility. Place your seed potatoes on this layer, cut side down and eyes facing up. Space them about 6 inches apart around the inside perimeter of the tower. 4 to 5 seed pieces fit comfortably in an 18-inch diameter tower. Cover your seed potatoes with another 4 inches of the soil leaf mix. Water gently until the mix is damp throughout, not soaked, not dripping, just evenly moist. Now you wait. Sprouting takes 1 to 3 weeks, depending on soil temperature. The hilling cycle is where your yield multiplies. This is the actual technique that separates a tower from a container. If you just plant potatoes and leave them alone, you get container results, maybe 20 pounds. The hilling is what gets you to 60, 80, 100 pounds. Here's how it works. Your seed potatoes sprout. Green shoots emerge from the soil and start growing toward the light. When those shoots reach about 8 inches tall above the soil line, you add another layer of your soil leaf mix. Bury the stems until only the top 4 inches of foliage are visible. The buried section of stem will produce new stolons. Those stolons will produce new potatoes at a higher level in your tower. The exposed foliage keeps photosynthesizing, producing energy to feed all those new potatoes forming underground. Wait until the new growth is 8 inches above the soil line again. This takes 1 to 2 weeks, depending on weather. Add another layer of soil leaf mix. Bury again, leaving 4 inches of foliage exposed. Repeat. You'll do this 3 to 4 times over the growing season. Each hilling cycle adds about 6 inches of material to your tower. By the time you're finished, your tower is full and your potato plant has stolons producing potatoes at multiple levels. Here's your timing. First hilling, about 3 weeks after sprouts emerge. Second hilling, around week 6. Third hilling, around week 9. Some seasons, you get a fourth hilling in before the plant starts flowering. Once you see flowers, stop. Flowering means the plant is shifting energy from vegetative growth to maturing the potatoes you already have. No more new stolons will form. Just let everything finish developing. 5 mistakes kill more potato towers than disease or pests ever will. I've made every single one of these. Let me walk you through them so you don't waste a season learning the hard way. Mistake number 1. Wrong variety. If you plant Yukon Gold in a tower and expect 80 pounds, you're going to be disappointed. You'll get exactly what you'd get in a row, maybe 15 pounds. The tower is completely wasted on determinate varieties. Your variety choice determines whether vertical growing works at all. Get this right first. Mistake number 2. Planting your seed potatoes too deep. Your initial planting depth should be 4 to 6 inches of cover, not 12, not 8. The sprout has limited energy stored in the seed piece. If it has to travel too far to reach sunlight, it exhausts itself before emerging. The sprout rots underground. You see nothing above ground and wonder what happened. I lost an entire tower to this in 2022. Planted 8 inches deep because I figured deeper meant more room for potatoes. Every seed piece rotted. Mistake number 3. Hilling too late. Timing matters here. You need to bury fresh, green, actively growing stem tissue. If you let your plants get 2 feet tall before you think about hilling, you've missed the window. The lower stems have already matured. They've hardened. They won't produce stolons anymore. You're burying woody tissue that just sits there doing nothing. Check your towers weekly during active growth. When shoots are 8 inches above soil, hill them. Don't wait for a convenient weekend. Mistake number 4. Waterlogging your tower. This is especially common if you're using heavy clay soil or if you forgot to add enough leaf matter to your mix. Towers can trap water. If your drainage is poor and you water too much or get heavy rain, the lower portion of your tower becomes saturated. Potato roots drown. The plant looks sick from above, yellowing, wilting, even though the soil is wet. That's not drought, that's rot. You might not realize what's happening until harvest, when you find a layer of mush instead of potatoes. Mistake number 5. Impatience. You'll want to dig in and check your progress around week 8. Don't. Every time you disturb the tower, you're potentially breaking stolons, damaging developing potatoes, and setting the plant back. I know it's tempting. I know you want to see what's happening in there. But the best thing you can do for your harvest is leave it alone. Let the plant tell you when it's ready. When the tops die back completely, brown and dry, not just yellowing, that's your signal. Harvest time, not before. Mark your calendar for 90 to 110 days after planting and start watching for dieback around then. Watering your tower is simpler than you think. Potatoes need consistent moisture, but they don't want constant wetness. Your goal is soil that feels like a wrung-out sponge, damp to the touch, not dripping, not dusty. Here's my method, and it takes about 2 minutes every few days. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil near the edge of your tower. If it feels dry at that depth, water. If it still feels damp, wait another day or two. In hot weather during summer, you'll probably water twice a week. In cool, cloudy weather, maybe once. Total water per week is roughly 1 to 2 gallons per tower. That's not much. Your tower has much better water retention than a traditional row because the leaves in your mix hold moisture. The vertical sides reduce evaporation compared to a flat bed. You're not fighting water loss the same way you do with open ground. I don't fertilize my towers during the growing season. Here's why. Those leaves you mixed into your soil are breaking down continuously. They're releasing slow nitrogen, potassium, trace minerals, exactly what your potato plants need, delivered gradually over the whole growing cycle. Synthetic fertilizer applied to potatoes tends to push excessive foliage growth. You get huge, beautiful green tops. You feel great about your gardening skills. Then you harvest and find tiny potatoes because all that energy went into leaves instead of tubers. Let the leaves do the work. They're decomposing. They're feeding the soil biology. That biology is feeding your potatoes. If your foliage looks pale or stunted after a month, something is wrong with your mix. Not enough organic matter, maybe. Add a handful of compost around the base. But in 3 years of tower growing, I've never needed to add anything mid-season. The leaves provide everything. Harvest is the payoff, and it's worth the wait. You'll know it's time when the foliage starts dying back naturally. First the leaves yellow, then they brown. Then the whole top of the plant dries out and collapses. This usually happens between 90 and 110 days after planting for indeterminate varieties. Don't rush it. As long as your plant has any green leaves, it's still photosynthesizing. It's still sending energy to the potatoes underground. Those potatoes are still growing, still sizing up. Dead tops mean the potatoes are finished. The skins are setting, getting thicker and tougher for storage. Now they're ready to come out. Here's my harvest method. I wait 1 full week after the tops are completely dead. This extra time lets the skins set fully. Then I untie the wire mesh cylinder at the seam and carefully peel it back. The whole column of soil, leaves, and potatoes is standing there, exposed. I start at the top and work down, gently pulling potatoes loose by hand. No shovel. No fork. No digging. Just reaching in and picking them out like collecting eggs from a nest. The structure holds together well enough that you can take your time. A good tower produces 60 to 100 pounds of potatoes. I've consistently hit 80 pounds from my towers, sometimes more. That's 40 times the yield per square foot compared to a traditional row. Weigh your harvest. Count the potatoes. Write it down. Next year, you'll want to compare. Here's what you'll notice when you harvest your first tower. The potatoes at different levels are different sizes. The bottom layer, your original planting level, has the largest potatoes. They've been growing longest. The middle layers have medium-sized potatoes. The top layer has smaller ones. This is normal. You're not doing anything wrong. You're seeing the result of timing. Each layer had a different amount of growing time. All of them are perfectly good food. Now let's talk about what this actually costs you, because the numbers are the whole point. Seed potatoes, 4 pounds of seed produces 1 tower. At $2 a pound from a garden center, that's $8. Wire mesh, $6 to $8 new, but you'll reuse it for years. Call it $2 per season amortized. Leaves, free. You collected them from the curb last fall. Soil and compost. maybe $10 if you're buying bagged soil. Free if you're making your own compost. Total investment per tower, roughly $20 to $25. Return, 80 pounds of potatoes. At store prices of $2.50 per pound, that's $200 of food. 8-to-1 return. In 90 days, from 4 square feet. You could run 2 towers and produce more potatoes than your family eats in a year. Total garden space required, 8 square feet. Total investment, $50. Total return, $300 to $400 of food. Compare that to your traditional row. You're using 30 square feet of garden bed to produce 20 pounds of potatoes. That's $50 of food at store prices. But you've invested 30 square feet of prime garden real estate, space you could have used for tomatoes, peppers, or anything else. Your tower produces 4 times the food in 1/8 the space. You're not just saving money, you're freeing up your garden for other crops. If the wire tower seems like too much for your first season, here's the stripped-down version. No wire. No construction, no cost at all. Just cardboard and leaves. Find a large cardboard box, the kind refrigerators or washing machines come in. Cut off the top and bottom so you have a tall, open-ended tube. Set it on bare ground in your sunniest spot. Fill the bottom 6 inches with shredded leaves. Plant your seed potatoes. Cover with 4 inches of leaves mixed with a little garden soil. As the plants grow and you need to hill, just add more leaves around the stems. The cardboard gets soggy over the season. It weakens, but by the time it's falling apart, your leaf structure inside has enough mass to hold its shape. You don't need the cardboard anymore. By harvest time, the whole structure has composted itself. You dig out the potatoes, and you're left with a pile of rich organic matter that goes straight into next year's garden beds. Zero waste. Zero construction. 40 to 60 pounds is realistic from a cardboard tower. Here's the math that finally convinced me to stop buying potatoes at the grocery store. My household eats about 120 pounds of potatoes per year. At store prices, that's $300. I run 2 towers per season. Total time investment, 90 minutes spread across 90 days. Planting day takes 30 minutes. Hilling, 3 cycles at 10 minutes each, takes 30 minutes total. Harvest takes another 30 minutes. That's it. An hour and a half of actual work across the whole season. Total cost, roughly $50, including seed potatoes, any soil I buy, and amortized equipment. Yield from 2 towers, 140 to 160 pounds. I now have more potatoes than I can eat. The excess goes into cold storage in my basement. They keep until March if you cure them properly. Let them sit in a cool, dark place for 2 weeks before storing. Cure your potatoes, and you've got food security through the winter. I haven't bought a bag of potatoes from a store since 2023. You can do the same thing. The forest doesn't buy fertilizer. It doesn't buy irrigation systems. It doesn't buy certified disease-free seed stock. Leaves fall. Rain comes. Roots reach down. Life emerges. I keep thinking about that when I look at my towers in September. 80 pounds of food from 4 square feet of space. Materials that cost nothing because they were headed for the landfill anyway. 90 days of patience. 12 minutes of actual work per week. The soil remembers what you put into it. The leaves. The waiting, the not digging when you wanted to check. I'm still learning to stay out of the way.